And you're very welcome along to another CESI Staffroom. The CESI Staffroom aims to be between a half an hour and an hour. It's a YouTube and Spotify program that we put together for teachers by teachers with input from you. So if you have any ideas, please will you give us a shout. We'd be delighted to hear from you. You can contact us on the CESI list, which is on the CESI website. So that's www.cesi.ie. You can contact me directly at Hassan Daba on Twitter, or you can contact the CESI at CESI Tweets on Twitter as well. The CESI Staffroom webinar is a live event that takes place at least once a month. So keep an eye on that. That's where you can interact with the presenters at the time when we have guest presenters on. So we'd love to see you there. The standard CESI Staffroom is where we invite people, teachers, into the CESI Staffroom, and we talk about what they're doing in their staff room. Now, we've invited Ciara along again, and we're delighted that she could join us. Now, Ciara's joined us before, and she did a tutorial on Google Classroom, which was generating huge traffic. Ciara, you're very welcome along to the CESI Staffroom.
Thank you, Hassan. It's lovely to be back.
Ciara, will you introduce yourself and the school you're from for those of us who don't know you?
Yeah, my name is Ciara Grishko, and I am a teacher. I teach chemistry and science, and I'm also, say, a digital leader and year head, etc. in Gael Coláiste Limni in Limerick. And yeah, so we've been using technology very much embedded in our school, but we use G Suite across the board for all of our students and teachers.
Now, last time you were with us, Ciara, you did Google Classroom, and as I mentioned at the introduction, Google Classroom, the video itself got huge traffic. What I noticed in particular about the video itself is not an awful lot of people watched the hour-long video from beginning to end. Mm-hmm. What we did is we cut the video up and we put its timestamps down at the bottom. So for example, for Google Classroom, everybody might have known what Google Classroom was, but they mightn't know how to deploy students. And we created a timestamp, and then the viewer could just go, okay, actually I know what it is, but I want to know this. So we're going to do the same with this with this video for Google Forms. Now, Google Forms, tell us a bit about Google Forms and how you use Google Forms in your school before going into the whole introduction of what it is and the mechanics of it.
Sure, yeah, we've been using Google Forms for a long time. So Google Forms is another app, like you have Google Docs, Google Slides. So as part of the little waffle up in the top right corner, it's one of your apps in there. So and Google Forms, and it marries very well with Google Classroom, and it can be used for a lot of different reasons. So we would have started out by using it for collecting information from teachers and students. So very kind of simple survey style, as you like. So it's around the same time as, say, SurveyMonkey was coming out, you might use Google Forms instead. And it would do a lot of the analysis would be there for you in your charts. So we used it a lot for surveying parents, students and staff, and tied in with our SSE and so forth. And then I suppose the kind of feature of quizzes kind of came in, and then we started to use it for assessment. So we use it for a lot of different types of assessment that I will kind of talk through today. And I suppose it really came into its own around in the lockdown when we were looking to assess students. So a lot of departments in our school kind of split up forms and literally kind of, I suppose, substituted the exams into the into Google Forms, which allowed for auto correction. Now, you didn't have to use the auto correction. Some teachers wanted to also just, correct themselves, and I can show both of those things. But there was a lot of other features as well embedded in there. So assessment for learning as well. So there's feedback that you could give and guide students towards correct answers and self-assessment and stuff as well. So kind of and as well now, coming since we're back to school being a paperless environment, we're finding more and more uses for it. So traditional paper forms that we would have had to fill, even things like from the HSE in relation to observing questionnaires for teachers and things like that, we're kind of transferring all of that now into Google Forms. So it's become a real kind of a star of the apps alongside Google Classroom. And it's and a necessity really in the school. So teachers will be using very, very widely, as is administration and students as well, for conducting their own research.
And where do you start if you've never used Google Forms? Where do you start? What's the starting point?
Yeah, like look, if you've never used Google Forms, just start simple. You know, open up the app, like I said, as part of the waffles. You go down to Google Forms and open it up. I will go through all the different sort of buttons you should press that sometimes people are afraid to press, and have a look into the settings and just give it a go. So I mean, from a very simple thing, it could be just gathering feedback from students, you know, or starting a conversation, or you know, just getting students to sort of input a little bit of information. So you could start off there in using it as a forms, and then move on to maybe looking at it as a quiz as well, and how to navigate that. A little bit more work involved in that. It is, you know, but it is good investment work. We are absolutely delighted now coming back, being able to pull out these forms for students and give them to them. You know, it was really worth the investment in time.
And I can tell you from our own point of view, training needs analysis. So the forms, what you'll be talking about mostly today, will be the teaching and learning side of Google Forms. What I found is a good start, if you've never used Google Forms before, a few of my schools, what they've done is the principal wants to find out, do a training needs analysis for the teachers. So simple questions: have you used Google Forms? Have you used, it's a series of questions. Are you comfortable using the computer in the classroom? Or and then that's deployed to teachers, as well as an IT issues, a hit list, if you like. So classroom number, a simple form is class number or classroom number, reported issue, and then send. So what happens is I get a beautiful Excel sheet with the classroom number on it, the reported issue, and then the teacher maybe that put it in. So those are simple uses of Google Forms.
Okay, so what the plan is today is that I'm going to take you through how to create an exam. So we're looking at assessments in relation to an exam that auto corrects. So I'll begin with that, and then what we'll do is we'll look through examples of how you might use forms in your environment. So we're going to look at how to use forms to enhance assessment for pupils and teachers, and then how to achieve a paperless environment using forms. So the things that we're going to look at here are how to create a quiz and a test, and that's going to be very much the how-to. Then I'm going to just go through a few examples of how you might use forms in relation to other types of assessment for learning and of learning as well. And then we look at again how to achieve that paperless environment. So the first thing there in assessment is how to create a test. So just a couple of features before I launch into creating a test. The great features about it is you can reuse tests. So if you create a test and you give it to your students and they fill it in and they've got their results back, you can just take that test and make a copy. So that's brilliant for sharing amongst teachers. So in our school, we have a folder where we put in our Google Forms, and then teachers can just make a copy of them and give them to their own students. And we can reuse particular questions as well. I'm going to go through, today I'm going to look at an exam paper, a science exam paper, and I'm going to look at a couple of types of questions and show you how to recreate that into Google Form. And they can take a little bit of time, but the great thing is you can reuse those questions in between different forms as well. It auto corrects if you like, and you have the option to self-correct, and then the results are collected in Google Classroom. So that's what I'm going to start with right now. So I am going to open up Google Forms from here. Now we can open it from Google Classroom, but I'll show you that in a moment. But I'm going to open it from here because I would like to show you a couple of the templates that are in here. So when you open up Google Forms, you can see here that there's already some templates in there for you to use, okay? So an exit ticket. So the exit ticket here, I will just show you here, is something that you can use at the end of a lesson, or the end of a topic, or the end of a term. That's very popular in our school. Teachers use that quite widely, and there's a template in there ready to go. So it has your name, your email. One important thing that you learned today, you could change that to the end of term. How do you feel that the lesson went, and how could it be more effective? So that's a really nice template that's available just within Forms, and you can amend it yourself to suit whatever it is that you're looking for. So big here on, I suppose, student feedback, student voice. So the exit ticket, that's a really nice template. You have another one here about a course evaluation, which would be similar. You can go in here again, the end of term, again, very important here for teacher feedback, and for, again, sort of student voice. Okay, so you've got here the level of effort, contributing to learning. Again, you can amend this to suit what it is that the information that you want to find. And I'm going to go show you how to create these yourself as well, these type of questions. So that there, just a couple of templates that are available. I'm going to go in here now and go to blank quiz. Okay, so you're met with just a blank quiz here. So I'm just going to run through up here and show you a couple of things here, how you can customize your theme. So if you go into customize your theme, you can choose an image here. So there's a lot of templates of images. So you might like to put a different type of image on, or you can upload an image. I like to upload images. So I just had a couple here ready. So I like to put in my own images, and what I like to do is, if I have images of the particular class doing a bit of work, I like to put that up. Not necessary, but it kind of personalizes. It can be nice. So I'm just going to take that little snippet and I'm going to add it in here. That's can be nice as well if you're sending out forms to parents or staff, that you're kind of personalizing your forms. So that's a kind of a visual there. And you can change the font. I'm going to change this font here to playful. It is going to be an assessment, but let's make it a little bit more sort of less intimidating for them maybe. So I'm going to say here that this is to keep it simple to science test, okay? Okay, so I'm going to put that title on it. I can preview it. I'm going to look at that in a little while, okay, but you can preview it, and then the settings. Now, this is important to go into the settings because this is admittedly an issue that myself and some teachers ran into when we made copies of other exams. It's important to do this collect email address, okay? Now, we've got a kind of a safety net here, but as well that I'll show you, but the last thing you want is to get all of these exams back and have no names attached to them, because that can be, from experience, that can be very messy, okay, going back to students and getting them to put in their email. So that's a very important one. Limit to one response if you only want the student to do, and if this is an exam situation, you only want them to answer it once, so limit that. And you would leave that blank. Then the presentation here, you might want a confirmation message at the end. So say, well done. Keep up the great effort. Something like that. Keep up the great effort. Something like that. And you might want, now I'm not going to shuffle the questions, you might want to show progress bar so the student knows how far they are in the exam. And then quizzes here, it is already set as a quiz because I've selected a quiz, and that's fine. Okay, and if you have Chromebooks, you do have options here to lock it as well. Okay, so I'm going to save that. So that's in my settings there. Just over here, the 3 dots, that's important here if you want to make a copy of it. So again, if you have, you know, you're coming to the following year, you've got a new year group, you want to use the same test again, make a copy here. And a few different options here about pre-filled, and also add collaborators if you want. So for example, if you're working with another teacher, you can add them as a collaborator on it. And that's also important if you're using it in other scenarios as well, where you're kind of giving out surveys. So I'm just going to launch straight in here to the first question here. Now, what I'm going to do, again, this is my safety net if something happens and doesn't collect the email addresses. So I'm just going to put in the name. So I'm going to ask the students to put in their name there, and that's going to be a short answer. Okay. So now I'm going to get into my exam, and you can see here, these are the different types of questions. So these are, you know, your short answers, your paragraph. That's not going to autocorrect if you want to do that. I wouldn't advise putting in corrections there yourself, because if you have a capital or not, it won't accept it. I'll show you that in a moment. Then you've got checkboxes, drop down. I'm not going to use that yet. And then linear scale. The linear scale is nice if you want to show how comfortable are you from a scale of 1 to 5. That's more kind of opinion stuff, survey stuff. Multiple choice grid, that's going to be important now for building an exam. And then tick spot grid also. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up an exam. This is a state exam from 2019, science. So I want to create an assessment. So I want to look at these questions, and I'd like to put maybe the first question in the form. Okay, so I'm going to come down to this one first, okay, because it's multiple choice. So I can see here that that's just a multiple choice question. So I'm going to take this as my first question. So I'm just going to copy and paste it. Okay, so I'm going to copy and paste that in. I'm going to take out the place the tick, because I'm going to put in a multiple choice. Okay, so the question said microscope. I think it said telescope, and it said periscope. Okay, so that's not I'm going to use a multiple choice there. Okay, so the student, now I'm going to put in, this is an important part here. Okay, I have to put in an answer key. So I have to put in the correct answer. Okay, so I have to select the correct answer. So in this case, the correct answer is microscope. If the student answers that correctly, they're going to get, I've decided, 3 points. Okay, you can change this as you go on. If you want the exam to be out of 100, let's say, you might have to go back and adjust your points there. Now, this is important here for your feedback. So if the student gets feedback, an incorrect answer, you might want to guide them towards where the correct answer is. So you might say, oops, have a look at the notes again, and this video should help. Okay, now the good thing about this is you can kind of duplicate questions, so you're not doing this again and again. So here I've decided that I'm going to guide the students towards the notes. So these are the notes. I'm just going to open them up here, and I am going to add a link. So link to those notes, and then I'll say student notes. So the student should be able to open it. And I'm also going to add a video. So I'm putting in here junior cycle microscope. Now you might just have one that you want to copy and paste in, a video that you know is good for them. You might, or you could just copy and paste the URL in, but I am going to put this one in. I know it, it's good. So I'm going to select that, how to use a microscope. And I am going to put in for the correct answer here, well done, well done. Okay, and I'm also going to add in that video because it's good for them. Okay, so you could use this video to further review, let's say further revise the microscope. So I'm going to save that now, right? And now, so again, that may kind of seem like a lot of work, but you can duplicate the questions and it's there, you know, just to see how that view is. Okay, how it views. The student here was asked to examine an animal cell. Which of the following instrument the student use? I'm going to click here just to show here. Actually, no, yeah, so I'm going to show there, submit. Okay, and then it says, oops, have a look at your notes again. Okay, so that's what the students would view. And again, so, but just so I can show you there, if I go back to the last question there, say, let's imagine that my feedback is always going to be the same and not specific to the question. Like I might have just said, I might have decided to just put in the notes and not the video. I could duplicate that question here. If I click out of this now, click done there. You have the option here to duplicate the entire question. So if I was going to know I was always going to give the same feedback, I don't have to keep doing that. Do you know what I mean? So if I duplicate that question here, right, I can just change this now, okay? But my feedback will be the same, but I can alter it. It just means that I'm saving a little bit of time and not copying pasting in the feedback all of the time.
Okay.
So I'm just going to delete all of this, and I'm going to have a look back now on my that exam question that I was looking at. So I'm going to go back up here, and I'm going to see this question. I'm going to say, right, I want this in the exam, it's important, okay? So how do I put this into a Google form? Okay, so what I'm going to do here is I am going to take a screenshot of this guy. Okay, I'm going to look at the question, and it says, use the words listed below to label the parts of the cell: cytoplasm, cell membrane, and nucleus. Okay, and I'm going to think, right, how am I going to do that? Okay, so what I'm going to do first of all is I'm going to put in in the image, I'm going to put in an A, a B, and a C, and I'll show you how that works then in the Google form. So to do this, I'm going to open up, it could be Keynote, it could be PowerPoint, it could be anything that you can edit an image on, and I'm going to drag that image up here. Okay, and I'm just going to put in an A, a B, and a C. So there's a little bit of kind of, you have to kind of look at the question, think about what it is they're looking for, and put it into the image. So A, okay, so A, B, and C. Okay, I'm going to take another screenshot of that, and then I'm going to go back here, and this time I'm going to add in an image. Okay, so I have that on my desktop, so I'm just going to drop it in. So this would be quite, I suppose, an advanced use of it, let's say, right? But it really kind of gives value to these exams if you are trying to put in a state exam, you know, or trying to.
And it's also worth remembering
it.
that, yes, it is a bit of work at the moment, but this is there forever. You're
yeah,
not just
exactly.
like the copies you have of this can be used again and again and again.
Yeah.
So I mean,
yeah.
it's the equivalent of photocopying it. So if you do put in the work now, then that's a good thing.
Yeah, it really is worth it. You know, it really, like, it's the one thing we kind of say now, like, it was one of the best things about lockdown is that we have these excellent kind of exams. And I can show you an example of one that we created at the end here. But this one here, now to achieve this one, we're going to go down to multiple choice grid. Okay, so in the multiple choice grid, what we have here is a row and a column. So now we had earlier on, the question was, I think it said nucleus. It gave the option in the question. If I open up the question again, it gave cytoplasm, cell membrane, and nucleus. So I'm going to put these down here on our rows. So nucleus, cytoplasm, and cell membrane. Now we're in a Gael school, so we'd also be putting in the Irish and the English. But anyway, so we'd have columns here: A, B, and C. Okay, A, B, and C. Now the answer key here are 3 points each. Okay, so we've done that. The only drawback with this type of question is you can't actually put in feedback. You can for all the other types, but you can't with this one. It's the only. Okay, so I'm going to show you how that one looks. Okay, so I have my first question and I've got this one. Okay, so it appears like that. Okay, so I can say A is the nucleus. I know that's the nucleus. B is the cytoplasm, and C is the cell membrane. Now you don't have to have them in that order if that's you know, too obvious, but that's how you kind of transfer a question like that into a Google form, if that makes sense. One thing now, though, that I didn't do that I want to be sure of, I have to make sure that I put the answer in.
Okay.
Okay, so the nucleus there is A, and the answer key. Sorry, so the nucleus is A, the cytoplasm is B, and the cell membrane is C. So that's important. Okay, you have to put in the answer. And so it's kind of important to flop to check where, you know, yeah.
And that's important from the answer correction from the automatically correcting point of view, isn't it?
Yes, yeah, that's very
Not
important. Yeah,
just for the feedback to the student.
yeah, yeah. Oh, yeah, you have to. Yeah, you have to put in the answers so that it collates the points. So, like, I suppose when you're doing it, it's important to kind of keep on checking into the preview, and try it out, or at the very end, make sure that all the questions are working. So there's a little bit of kind of quality assurance that needs to go on, especially if it's a big, I suppose what I'm talking about here is a big kind of important test, let's say, that you really want to use for your assessment for students, not a kind of a one that you're just doing on the fly, which you can also do, but this would be kind of seen as a kind of a serious one, let's say. But
yeah, well, I think it's easy. It's important to remember that this isn't a would you prefer to play basketball or football type of question. That's not the feedback. This is teaching and learning. This is an important test that you're going to reuse over and over again. You can create plenty of throwaway tests, and you won't have to do half as much prep work with them because they're a throwaway. Whereas this, you want to keep this, you want to reuse this over and over again. One of the things I get all the time is teachers saying, I don't have the time to do this. So my answer tends to be, well, create one a month, or create one every 2 months, or create one every time you need one. You're not going to have to be running this test every single week, but you might run it maybe twice a year. If you create this big exam twice a year or 3 times a year with 3 different exams, then you have that exam to use next year. And before you know it, you will have a bank of information built up. But if you go into this thinking, right, I'm going to sit down on break or on lockdown or whatever, whenever you sit down and you go, I'm going to create a bunch of stuff, I think you're putting yourself in harm's way. I say create them as you need them, give each one the time that it deserves, and before you know it, you'll have a bank of resources built up.
Yeah, the way I kind of justify it, because it is like, like everyone is so busy and no one can do any more than they're doing. So whenever I kind of try and do something new, I kind of have, there has to be a balance. So, okay, so the way I look at it is, how long would this take me to correct? Right? So if I had to give this paper exam out, how long is it going to take me to correct? Would it take me an hour to correct? Well, if I put that hour into creating it, I'm after saving the hour of correcting it. And because there was times even in lockdown where I was going, what am I doing? This is taking so long. I'm like, but then of course, like when I, put it out and there was no corrections, like it was amazing. Now, having said that, you still have to look through the results. And, you can have the option to open a student's test and give additional feedback. Like, so there is obviously, you still have to check and see, but still it was just, it was the time on that end was saved, so it is. And obviously having more than one person doing it is great as well. So again, if you kind of are at the end of a topic and you create one of these, then you can amalgamate the different topics for, say, November tests or revision tests. Like, amazing for revision tests for third years as well, so we try and keep them by topic, and then you can amalgamate them into a big one then, pretty easy, like, because you can add questions in, because see this little button here, you can add a question, and you can this one here, import questions. So you can import questions from a particular form. So you can import the whole form, or you can import some of the questions from the form. So that's really, really handy when you're trying to do revision. Like, it's really, really good. You can see down here as well, there's different things you can add. You can add a title and a description. So I've kind of just thrown questions in, but depending on how you want to, do a question 1, question 2, or however, you can add an image. I did that. You can add in a video, and then you can add in a section. So if you wanted to break this up, if it was a very big test and you had different topics, you can break it up by sections as well. There's just one thing I wanted to show you as well. If you wanted the option of here, so say I'm going to go back to this one now. I'm going to duplicate it again, keeping in mind that I have already put some feedback in. So I'm just going to duplicate that question. But this time now, I just want an open text. So define photosynthesis, because teachers, like, to be fair, like, we worry when we move away from paper, are they, Like, listen, I'll tell you, like, kids will love a Google form for a test any day, you know, because, you know, in a way you wonder, is it less taxing because the answers are kind of there, it's multiple choice. Of course you can, like, you know, put in maths ones where they have to figure it out, but like, I noticed myself that, you know, I'm going to put in a couple of text ones here just to really see, are they learning their definitions, are they doing this and that. So there's the option to do this, which I'm doing a little bit more now. It just means that, okay, the correction is done, but I am going back through everyone to see if they've got this. And it really does take minimal time, but for me, it gives me peace of mind that I'm testing them fully, if you know what I mean.
Okay.
So define photosynthesis. So here, I'm just going to leave this one now as a short answer. Okay, and in the answer key, I've got 3, and then that I can add feedback in the end. So in this time now, like, I can add a correct answer here if I want to. So I could go and I could find the definition of photosynthesis and put it in. Okay, but what I would say about that is be very careful, because if students spell something a little bit incorrectly, or if they put a capital or an uncap in different places, then that kind of can mess the whole thing up. So we opt in our department just not to, and go through that one ourselves at the end. Does that make sense?
So what you're saying is, if the student spells photosynthesis wrong, then it'll appear as a wrong answer, but it's not necessarily they just left out an I or left out an S or
yeah. Do you see here, like, I could put in 50 different correct answers if I wanted to kind of figure out how they might, but it's very difficult to do that. So, you know, that's just something that I find that I've done it. But then what you'll find is students are like, oh, I did that, but I didn't put the capital in here, or I didn't put this here. And I'm like, do you know what? I'll just kind of go through the definitions myself. And I can give a little bit of feedback in there as I go on as well. So that is just another type of question there. And another thing that's worth mentioning here is when you come to the end of making a test, I only have a couple of questions in here now. It's important to go back and make sure that you have the questions as required, to make sure that the students answer them, so they can't progress on to the next question until they have clicked required. So that's an important thing to point out there. So once I've done that now, and I've checked it, I've viewed it, and I've made sure that I'm happy with all of my points and my feedback and so forth, I will then send it to students. So the way I can send it to students here is I could put the link into Google Classroom, or you can add it directly into Google Classroom yourself, or if you were giving it via email or another way, you could do it that way. I will also double check my settings, and I've done all that, and then I'll send the test. They will have done the test, and then I want to then assess the results. So I'm just going to show you an example of one that I did recently, so that you can see the data that you're supplied with.
Great.
So basically here, this is an ecology test, and let's kind of briefly show you how it looked. So there's a lot of multiple choice in that one, a lot of images brought in. Mostly maybe one grid there. There was one grid there. And then there's also sections, a lot of images. These were mostly taken from exam paper questions. And you can see here that these are long text answers. So I had to correct those ones individually. I chose to correct those ones individually, let's say, and I had it at 100 points. So these were my responses here. So you can see here that I'm given these insights. So the average, the median, and the range. Now if we go through each question, so it'll tell me here 91% of students got this question right, and it'll give me this data going through each one. It'll tell me where I need to kind of focus my attention when I'm going through the marking scheme with them. So here 73% got that one right, 60.9% got that right. So again, I kind of need to go back and look at that with them. And here you can see all your percentages. So that's a really, really handy way to assess how students are getting on with that topic. So they are the kind of results, and they're the written ones that I would have gone through and I would have corrected.
It's great to be able to see that, but it's also worth mentioning that all of the results get pulled into a Google sheet, which you can keep somewhere forever and ever and ever.
Yeah,
And
up
that's
here.
not something that you have to create. That's something
Yeah,
it creates for you.
yeah. Here is where you can click create the spreadsheet, look at the results that way. But the results, the form and the results are always going to be there for you every
Mm.
time you click back into them. But
That's
this is another
just,
option to look
yeah,
at, yeah.
again, the form, nobody needs to see a Google spreadsheet. Again,
Mm,
it's the nerd in me that data
yeah,
is there
yeah,
presented in a spreadsheet, which is nice. But really, you shouldn't have to go further than the responses.
yeah,
And if you have a student sitting in front of you and you're discussing, for example, teacher-student communication, you're discussing with Hassan the test that he just sat, you can
yeah,
open up the test and you
yeah,
can go to Hassan's name and you can see the
yeah.
Hassan's answers, which
That's
is a
it.
nice feature.
Yeah, it is, and it's important as well. This is a good one as well to know that if you get an email notification for new responses, so sometimes if you have a form that could be left open for any particular reason, and you might have students who have has come submitted it late or whatever, or for another reason, if you're using Google Forms for another reason, to get an email notification of new responses can be handy.
Hmm.
As well, that's another feature that's important that can be handy as well. So this is an example of a science test for second years that we did during lockdown. And you can see here we started off, we've done sections, so there's 7 sections. Again, you add the section down here by adding a section. So it just started off here with collecting their name. The next section was about solutions, so we just put that title in. Here is I'm just going to click done here. So here's the questions here. So these were what is, it was just a text question and they had a multiple choice to select the definition. And you can see there that we've got 1 point in. It was a very long test, so we've given that 1 point. The answer key here says feedback for incorrect answers was to look at these notes, and there was a link to the notes. So that was the feedback for those for that question. Here, then again, that's just an image that was imported and the students had multiple choice. Here again, so there was a lot of those kind of just images in and multiple choice again. Again, these were bringing in from state exams, bringing in the question and just thinking about how we could turn that into multiple choice, which we did. And these are all multiple choice. Here's an example coming up here now of this one here. That was one where they had to do maths and there was some 3 wrong answers, 1 correct. Again, maths. This was another one here. So do you remember the grid we were looking at?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
we took this was a state exam and I put it in English and Irish. So basically the students were given a lot of words and they had to put the words in the right place. So we used that grid there again. So they were the words, and on the options then we put A to H, and the students then selected the correct one. So that was another way of taking an exam question and putting it into a grid. Okay, so that's kind of, you can see just a lot of images in and a lot of multiple choice.
Thanks very much, Ciara, for all that. There's a huge amount of content in there, and it's worth remembering that this, you can pause at any time and you can roll it back, and you can go to a particular timestamp. And I'll do my best to have the timestamps in place. Ciara, I want to be devil's advocate for a second. So, what is, like, what are the benefits of, what's the return on investment, I suppose? So you're putting all this time into creating these tests. What are you taking out of it?
Well, I suppose ultimately we do what we do is because we do it for the students, okay, and it's a fantastic resource for them. I suppose primarily what pushed us to take it to this level, which meant really kind of looking at the exam papers and trying to take images and recreate them, was the fact that we were in lockdown. But I suppose we kind of have to prepare for that could happen again. But as well as that, I suppose the data that's generated from it is really, really important. Again, looking at if we were in a situation where, you know, our continuous assessment was really important for deciding the students' grades for the junior cert or the leaving cert, that data is really, really valuable. But we want that data to be valuable. We want that quiz to stand and have merit, without just being a flimsy little quiz we do in the class. So that investment of time, I think, in order to use that data, is important. It's a great investment going forward. Like I said, now for revision for our third years this year, they're fantastic revision tools, and it just gives us time, obviously, when we're not correcting. We don't 100% use these forms instead of tests. I only last week did a written test. It had to be quarantined for 3 days before I gave it. It had to be quarantined for 3 days after during midterm. That was fine. And then it has to be quarantined for another 3 days going back. So there's a big delay then in feedback for students. So the immediate kind of level of feedback for the students is really good for forms that we're missing with paper. But I suppose at the end of the day, we're trying to get a balance. And
Because
you know.
I'm glad you mentioned the quarantine side of it, because again, the paper, the leaving cert, if they ever do the leaving cert again in its traditional form, it's written. It's the pen. I'm here holding a pen. So some might argue that if you get them used to doing it online or doing it using a device, you're taking this skill away. But what you're saying is, this isn't replacing the pen. You're still doing. It's just you're deploying the written exam differently.
Yeah, I mean, you can, like, I mean, there are parts in the form, like, where you can leave open text, where they can type, but the written aspect of it is, you would use this in a blended. I think what this does is it just adds to your toolbox. You know, it adds to what you already do, without fully replacing it, you know. And it can, in one sense, if you have it pre-prepared, it can take the pressure off for you to focus on something else, now and again, rather than going through the process of quarantining exams all of the time. But it's a blended approach that we have to look at. But it most definitely, it's a great addition to your classroom, and when they're done to a standard that you can kind of stand up behind and say, you know, this is actually testing the students and it's testing them well, you know. But definitely a blended approach is probably what a lot of people are using.
So sorry for interrupting you again. Just to so back on track again.
Yeah.
So assessment. We're doing this for assessment. So take it away.
Yeah, so just a couple of examples of our ideas about how. So we kind of already ran through there the creating a test or a quiz. You can also do it directly within Google Classroom. How you might do it here. So I'm just going to go into classwork, and I'm going to create a I'm going to create a quiz assignment. And there you can see you can create it directly in there. Okay, so you can put the title here, and you can say, you know, whatever you want to say about doing the test, and it automatically, once you assign it, it automatically, once the test is done, it will bring your results in there. I suppose one thing that I want to kind of highlight to you here, I'm just going to put in test here, is that in my situation, and maybe a lot of other teachers' situation, you might already have one done, that you don't want to create straight in there, because if you go there, you're creating it from blank. So that's a blank quiz, okay? But you might already have one. So you can X that out if you like, and you can add in one that you've already created there from your Google Drive. So I've got one probably recently that I've been working on. So I'm just going to throw that in and insert it. Okay. And the grading import is on there. So that'll behave just as the other one did. So that's sometimes stumbling block for people. They're not sure how to get it in, but you can do that. So X out the other one and bring in one that you've created before. And that's that really. Okay, you've got your points if you want your points in, your due date, and so forth, as with Google Classroom. Is that okay?
That's brilliant. And again, I think it's worth mentioning, just as you were running through there, you've covered this part in your last tutorial with us, importing quizzes. So for the sake of linking it all together and joining the dots, There is another video on the CESI channel with Ciara, and Ciara talks about Google Classroom. So when you're finished watching this, definitely jump back into the other one, and it'll tie the whole lot together for you.
Yeah, because you can, like, other apps that that people use, really popular apps that you might already be using, integrate with Google Classroom really well. So that was kind of mentioned in the last video. So that's worth looking at. Any kind of service that you use, you'll be surprised to see that you can probably import a lot of your classes from Google Classroom, particularly if you sign in with your Google account, your school Google account. It imports all of the information from Google Classroom, which is super handy. Now, so here's just another example of the exit ticket. This was particularly good during lockdown, but teachers are using it now. Like I said, sometimes the end of classes or at the end of terms. You can find that in templates. When you open forms, there's templates here. So it's a great way, as it provides feedback to the teacher about the class. It requires the student to do some synthesis of the content, and it challenges the student with the question requiring some application of what they learned in the lesson. So you can really kind of check in. Another way, instead of calling it an exit ticket, another way that I use this is to gather prior knowledge on a topic or an understanding. So I might just put together a quick form about the thing that we're looking at and ask them, what do you know about genetics? What words do you associate with genetics? And then that just kind of lets me kind of get a picture of where we are in relation to the topic for the students. So that's one way of using it. Another way of using it is for self-assessment. So there's a lot of kind of things that we've been introduced to of late in relation to assessment for learning, and I think self-assessment and peer assessment is a big thing. And here are some examples of how you might use student self-assessment checklist. So teamwork, I collaborated with my team members, I reviewed deadlines and work. So there's some information here. I was supportive of other team members. The content, I gave valuable information. So this in particular is kind of quite useful if you're in and around CBAs. Okay, so when you're doing CBAs, checking in on how students are progressing with their work, in particular with group work as well. There are some templates. I think I have links I'll share with Hassan, and he can maybe put them in as well, and I have them at the end of this presentation. But there are a link to some templates that are available if you'd like to have a look at that. Another example there, the final example is the assessment is videos. So what a lot of teachers use videos. There's an amazing content available out there online for all subject areas. And I think most teachers in some way or another are using videos. But what can be tricky is to kind of figure out, well, and know, are they actually engaging with the videos? So it's one thing to say, here, watch this video for homework, and then ask next day, how was the video? This is another way of doing that and checking that they've actually looked at the video. So you don't necessarily have to put in a lot of detail. So this is an example of a form that I did in photosynthesis, and I said, what was your favorite part? Why? So if like I've created just a template that I can just copy and paste and put in a different video if I'm kind of don't have much time. But if I had more time, I might ask specific questions on the video. So the way you do that in a form is you just, when you create a question, you can just add in a video. So another way that I'm using this is I have flipped my classroom. So I record my teacher talk at home using say Screencastify, and I will put that video then into a form, and that's the student's homework. So the student's homework is to look at that form as to look at that video and engage with that material. And this is a way for me to make sure that they have engaged with the material in place of homework. And then in classroom, then in the class, they get to do their tasks, their homework, and I get to sort of give them feedback and help in class and save my voice when trying to talk through a mask. So that's a kind of a way that I use it there. So then moving on then to the paperless environment, like I'm just going to show a couple of examples, and I'm sure people are using forms for a long time in lots and lots of different ways. Really, it's endless, the possibilities in how you use it. But I suppose what I'm thinking of here is more in the administration. So in support, in gathering information from parents, students, and teachers. So here's a couple of solutions. So multiple teachers writing on one form. So I had a situation there recently where Elaine, our coordinator of AEN, came to me with a form that, you know, 5 different teachers all had to write on one form from the HSE, and we said that's not possible, it's not safe anymore. So we looked to Google Forms and we used that grid that I showed earlier on. I'll just show you how it looks now. And this is the form that she created based on that form. So she looked at the form, and it needed the student name, the form completed by the teacher, the subject, the date, and using that grid here, she was able to just take the information from the form and recreate it here, and then send it to the teachers so that they didn't have to write on the form anymore. So that was really, really good use, and she was really delighted that she didn't have to physically get teachers to fill in this form. So that was a kind of a practical use there. Another one then is to create a sign in with QR codes. So I could walk you through that quickly.
Yeah, if you could. That one jumps out at me. I don't know why. My inner nerd. Well, my inner nerd is in fact
code.
Me. I saw a QR code and I said, "Oh, I want some of that, please."
Yeah. I knew you would. I knew you'd like a QR code. So the blank, now you can use this again. The possibilities are endless. The only limitation is your imagination. So this is just, say, a sign-in form. So let's say a parent is dropping a student in and they had to sign in. So we'll just say sign-in form, late sign-in form. And we will say student name, and we just call that short answer. It's a required, okay, we want them to answer that. Parent name. And we want that to be short answer also, and we want that to be required. And any other information that you might want, so whether it's the date, let me see, add in the date and the time, let's say. Okay, and the time. So, and then we'll say that's required as well, and that's required as well. And you may want to gather an email address depending on your GDPR and so forth. So I'm just going to call this the sign-in form, and we'll just have a quick view of that to see how that's looking. Like, I didn't add in, you could add in your nice pictures or change the theme, student name, parent name, the date and the time, and you can see there that it's automatically kind of put in the calendar, and it's automatically put in the time in that format for you. Okay, so just before I create the QR code, I just want to check in on my settings, okay? So if I want just people within the organization to use it, I will leave this on, restrict to using Gael Closh Nimni. If I want outside people to use it, i.e. parents coming in, I'll turn that off. Okay, so I'm going to turn that off now, and I'm going to create the QR code. So when I'm sending it there, I'm going to grab the link. I'm going to copy the link, and I'm just going to go into a QR code generator. Just the first one that came up there, and I am going to paste it in, and then I get a QR code. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a screenshot of that QR code, and I don't know, depending on how I want to use it, I might want to dress it up or hang it up somewhere or use it. I'm going to, sorry, this one here. Now, and there, now, Hassan, do you want to test it out there?
Yeah, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take my iPad, and I'm going to, and you're welcome to try this, you're welcome to try this at home as well.
I'll try it myself.
I'm going to take my iPad, and it automatically opens up the screen. And of course, we're waiting. Did it let you in? Yay, yeah. You got in there before me. My internet is like I mentioned before, The hamsters
Yeah,
running my internet
that's okay.
are tired.
That's okay. But that's their now basic form, not dressed
Excellent,
up.
excellent.
But
So now you mentioned not dressed up. So you you can add whatever you want to that, isn't that right? So you don't
you
have
can
to
make it
just
look
drop it in.
pretty. No, you can make it look pretty if you want to, which I would.
Yes.
So I love an image, okay? So choose an image, like it has lots of different images here, but I like to put in my own ones of my own school and my own context. So I'm just going to grab this one because I like this one, and just makes it look a little bit more official and relative to our school. So I'm just going to click that done. You don't have to do that, but that's just something that I like to do. Kind of, I suppose, standardize the forms that are shared amongst staff and to pupils and parents and things like that. So that's it. It's worth noting though as well that QR codes can be used for anything, for any website, anything that you want people to link to, not just Google Forms, obviously. So it's,
And
that's QR codes.
and the example you gave there is just for a late sign-in. That's just one use.
Oh yeah, yeah.
So for me to summarize, you've created a form that's available through a QR code. That QR code is going to be displayed on the entrance to the school or on the secretary's window. And as a parent, my child is late, I can take out my device, take a picture, it points me towards the form that you've created. I fill out the details and I press send as a parent, and I walk out the door again.
So yeah, so just that is one possible use. There's lots of uses, and is actually Richard Daly gave me that idea of a Thai college. So thank you for that, because it is a lovely idea, and QR codes are great, and they have lots of different uses in lots of different settings.
Great.
So
I
yeah,
love the idea of QR codes. One of the best uses of a QR code I've seen is where it was a QR treasure hunt.
yeah.
So they had devices in the school, and every student could use their own device, and they went from classroom to classroom, and then
Oh,
I thought that
lovely.
was nice. Like, it was really nice.
Yeah.
Now, it took an awful lot of work, but again, that can be wheeled out once a year.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, there's lots of different uses for it. There's just here, sorry, now the one thing there. Just two other examples there are students selecting their options. So just to show you quickly there was this was an example of students when selecting their short courses. So they had options 1, options 2, options 3. So that was really, really handy in gathering that information from students. We also use Google Forms to gather information for their option courses when they going into 5th year. So that's a really kind of important use of Google Forms for us. And then the other example there was this one. Okay, so another example is again checking in with teachers and trying to gather information. So this is an example of gathering information about during lockdown. But I did another one recently as well, because we did some teacher sort of professional learning in and around planning for hybrid learning, and we gathered information before and after so that we could tailor the session to suit them. But I just wanted to show you there how the analysis looks. So you can see here that it just looks really nice, really quick, really immediate. You can really kind of make decisions and deduct information really, really quickly from the multiple choice questions. So that was really important for planning going forward. So a lot of use in SSE and digital learning planning and so forth.
Ciara, thank you very much. Like, seriously, you've covered so much, and yet I know that there's so much that could be covered, but you can't cover everything in the one sitting. So I suppose my advice to everybody out there is, if you found this video useful, but either you found it too advanced or maybe not advanced enough, then it's definitely worthwhile to send us a note, contact us on Twitter at CESI Tweets. You can contact me directly on Twitter. You can contact Ciara on Twitter, and we'll put together a video that suits you or that suits where you are in your school. So if you find yourself at a certain point and you go, God, if I could do this, it will get me over a hurdle, then let us know, because that's what we're here to do. Ciara, I couldn't let you go without talking about GEG. So will you talk to us a bit about it?
So GEG Ireland is a Google education group in Ireland, and they're all over the world. And this is being sort of spearheaded by Dunico Tracy, who's the director of schools in the LCTB, with Connor Power is doing an awful lot of the work with him there as well. And it really, the numbers since it started sort of back in the summer. I know there was a group a couple of years ago, but this particular group now, it's really kind of taken off, and it's grown nationally. So there are lots of people on it nationally, from principals, deputy principals, digital leaders. And this group, I suppose, get together to discuss how we're using G Suite in education. Most recently, there was a meeting, and it's open to everybody. All you have to do is make contact, and there's the website GEG. If you put that into Google, you'll find the Irish group, and maybe Hassan, you'll be able to link
I'll
that as
pop
well.
the link up,
yeah, that would be great. And there's, first of all, there's sessions run by teachers, so our own teachers are putting on sessions, all voluntary, and they're done by Google Meet. And then there's other meetings that kind of come up intermittently, like we had one there with actually Google there last week or this week, about Google Enterprise for education. I suppose what you have with GEG is you have that direct link with Google to really kind of get to the people who have the answers, and also they keep us informed about the best uses, and also there's just they kind of highlight to us the teaching and learning support as well that's available out there. So it's really about the whole package as well, not just the infrastructure. It's about the teaching and learning aspect of it as well. So I suppose, look, the main thing with GEG is it's a professional learning network for teachers within Ireland, but also reach internationally as well. And great sharing going on in Twitter and in the sessions themselves. It's very collegial, very open to everybody as well. Anyone who wants to join can just make contact. And it's just been a great support,
Well, I'm very impressed, and I was part of the original GEG group that started, and like everything like this, I kind of parked it and I went back to it, or I never went back to it, should I say. Now, for teachers who are new to this, this is like, just to emphasize what you say, if you're not part of the GEG group and you use G Suite in your school, you need to be part of the GEG group, even if it's answering or asking questions, or do that. Like, if you took nothing out of this the last few minutes, sign up to the GEG group, and get yourself on Twitter as well while you're at it.
Well, it's just great to find out what other schools are doing, and to get ideas. Like, it's just quick little ideas like that you get, that that's the best part of it. It's that sharing of ideas and how people are getting on, and the challenges and the possibilities, and like, even like, you can hear, I got so many ideas listening to other leaders in other schools about how they're using Google Sites, for example, things like that, and you're just like, God, that's so easy to apply, but you just may not have thought about it. So yeah, I suppose it's raising the standards for everybody, and at the end of the day, it's the students that benefit from it, so it's there for the right reason, it's great. It's a great help, great support.
Excellent stuff. Ciara, thank you very much for joining us in the CESI Staffroom.
No problem.
You're very good. I don't know what we're going to cover next. But we're definitely going to get you back. Ciara, thank you very much. Don't forget, you can get anything that we've covered will be in the description below on the YouTube channel. We also have a Padlet. Any resources discussed today and in previous CESI Staffroom, the CESI Staffroom Padlet will be available. I can put up the links here. I can put them in the notes as well. If you have any questions, Twitter is always the best way to get a hold of either myself or Ciara or indeed the CESI tweets. So at CESI tweets, send the tweet out. There's EDU forums everywhere, IT forums, ICT forums. There's an ICT forums fairly active on Facebook as well. If you're a teacher and you have any questions, definitely get yourself onto one of these forums and don't be afraid to ask the questions. The CESI list is available on www.cesi.ie. That's CESI. That's the Computers in Education Society of Ireland.ie. This video will be embedded in that website. We'll also have the links to the Padlet with all the resources on it as well. And again, you can contact me or indeed anybody on CESI through the CESI list. If you're not on the CESI list, I think you should be on the CESI list. It's another good resource to have. If you think my answer to your question will be overly technical, it tends to be because I'm a bit of a nerd, then there are plenty of other teachers out there who will be able to help you. So that said, Ciara, thank you very much.
Thank you, Hassan.
And we'll be chatting soon.
Bye.